Hello, good evening and welcome everybody. Welcome to another Photo Creative live feedback and critique. If you don't know what that is, Photo Creative are a series of monthly photography challenges to give photographers of all levels a creative workout. This time the challenge theme was weather. If you'd like to get monthly photo projects and join what I believe to be the friendliest, most supportive group of photographers ever, then please use the Photo Creative link in the description. So I know it's a little bit echo in here. I'm coming from somewhere I don't usually come from. I'll tell you more about that in a moment. But first, I'd just like to say a big thank you shout out to Christina. She's been donating to the group for years and had a little problem with her payments and went to a lot of effort going through things with McLean to try and get things sorted out. So thank you, Christina. And also to Susan Firth. I just saw you made a donation to help keep the group going. If you'd like to do that, you can do it by clicking the little $ and buy everybody a sticker. And that will support everybody. If you don't know who I am, my name's Mike Browne. I'm an award-winning photographer who trains photographers, runs workshops and speaks at some of the most prestigious photography events in the world. I'm very, very lucky. Again, please check out the About in the description and my portfolio link to find out more. Feedback and critique given in these sessions is intended to help as many people in the group as possible. If you have questions or suggestions, please pop them up in the comments and I will do my best to answer them. So it's good to see you all. Thank you all for being here. As I say, it's a bit echoey. I am coming to you from sunny Spain. Looking at my screen, it all looks like it's a little bit blurry and out of focus. I don't know, is it like that for you guys? Is the screen looking blurry? Just tell me. It looks a little bit soft. I've been trying to fix it, but it looks a bit odd to me. But anyway, there we go. Okay, the screen doesn't look blurry. Some say a little, yeah, well, okay. Way out of focus, says George. Yeah, it looks a bit soft on mine. It also looks like I'm having a bad hair day too, so apologies for that. Oh well, it is what it is. I'm coming from a friend of mine's house in the town of Playa Blanca on Lanzarote. I've been over here doing a bit of research for something and I just thought, well, while I'm here, why not stay for a couple of weeks and avoid the miserable weather in England. You are correct, Peter, it is only 720p. I normally do this from my office where I've got two big screens with lots of stuff going on, so this could be a bit of a mashup because I'm only working on a little laptop. We may also get a bark from a dog because Dave's dogs are out in the garden, they want to come in and he's gone out to do something. So if it's a little bit up and down, I do apologise. What else? Is there anything else I need to say to anyone? I don't think there is really. Of course, there is the Lanzarote workshop, which is coming up in November. If you want to come over to this fabulously photogenic little island and join me, I'm sure many of you in this group have been over here, and I'm sure they will tell you what it's like and what that workshop is like. Whilst you're here, please hit that like button because it helps the YouTube algorithm. It helps me promote what we do here, as well as, of course, everything else within our world. So please, if you haven't done it already, hit that like button. It is really important. Jane, I'm sure you would love to come over. I get it. It's a long old way for you. And I still salute you. You are always the first person. So yeah, I think it's 5:30 in the morning or something you get up to do this. And I think that's a real big thing because at the end of the day, it is effort in always equals results out. You know, you're always here working on your photography. So let's see if I can share the screen with you. I've got to be very careful on how I do this. There you go. It's going to be a bit of a mess for a minute because you can see all sorts of things because I've got everything on one screen instead of just my laptop. Here we go. Let's get that one in there and that one in there, and no, that one needs to go over the top. That's better. Now I can see what's going on, including the chat. I'll probably be asking a few questions along the way. So yeah, stay tuned. Right, let's have a look at some of these weather photos. There's some wonderful photography in here, and I will be shouting out some of those, explaining why I think it's really good and why it works. There are some where I think the photographer could use a little bit of help and it's intended to be constructive, and help you grow your photography. If you don't get a mention, please don't take that personally. There are just too many to cover. We will be finishing in around about an hour, which will be 8 p.m. UK time. So let's dive right in. Now, I noticed, Philomena, you did enter one, but I'm afraid it was a little bit late. You just missed the deadline. But I get your sense of humour. Too late for the snowman. Let's have a look at some of these images. Now, Crystal, you've been here for a very, very long time, and I do kind of like this. I did think this challenge would be a good opportunity for pictures of kids having great fun with the weather. And I really like the movement that you've got in this one, Crystal. You know, just, we all remember being a kid. If you live somewhere where it does snow, then, you know, shaking the branches and getting the snow coming off. You've said weather without necessarily doing a big picture of the sky, you know, with the clouds and all that stuff going on. We've got that joy coming out of this picture of the kid. And that slightly slow shutter speed is what's given movement to the branch. If you're thinking, how has she got that branch to do that? It's about finding the shutter speed, which will freeze most of the action. If you look at the branches up in the top here, and the little girl, it's all nice and frozen. But the branch is moving because the shutter speed was just slow enough. Movement is the superpower of a shutter speed. Great shot. Nice one, Crystal. Let's have a look. Alain Virgin Coustache, thank you for being here. So the theme was weather, and I get it. You've got a nice picture. I like the positioning you have on the houses down in the bottom left-hand corner and looking out across that lovely smooth water. But I'm not really feeling weather. I'm getting more of a feeling of landscape, of scenery. And this is a difficult thing, to try and get a feeling of something into an image, the feeling of weather. The other thing I'm not sure about, those ducks. I don't know if you're here, Anna, did you put them in Photoshop? Because something looks a little bit fishy maybe about the ducks. Fishy, haha, that wasn't meant to be a joke. But yeah, what can I say? I like the light, I like the picture. Nicely done, technically all good, exposure's good, it's nice and sharp, all that good stuff. For me though, it is just missing that feeling of weather. It's more of a scene, I think. Let's move on up a little. Now, Rupert Selden. I quite like what you've done with this as well. You know, it's a shame, yeah, we see litter lying around. I just noticed your comment. I should probably have picked it up. Well, hopefully you did. Or if you didn't, you can pick up another bit somewhere, and there you go, you've made up for it. So how could this image be improved? It's a tricky one. I think actually it probably worked almost better with the frosty leaves rather than the piece of litter. I think the fact that it's a piece of litter is kind of dominating the picture rather strongly, and it's kind of taking out the theme of the weather. We're looking more at the litter, but it's a good effort, and this is the whole point of these challenges, is to think about how you can do something, ways to portray it. And also, just because I'm saying this doesn't mean it's true. This is purely my opinion. Yeah, I've been doing it a long time. But I do wonder if maybe just working in a little closer, possibly on the frost on some leaves, I think that might have said the weather thing, possibly a little more strongly. But nonetheless, good on you, Rupert, for getting out there, taking some pictures and giving it a go. I've got to be careful because I don't have my second screen here, so I'm having to use my phone to make sure I don't shout out the wrong pictures before we get to the end with my chosen 6. This one intrigued me. Carl, hello Carl, because you've got some great colours going on here, and I find it intriguing because of this shape, and I don't know what it is, and that kind of makes it for me intriguing, interesting. I like the positioning of this dark silhouette-y sort of piece at the bottom. I think it's the corner of a house or something with a roof terrace. Hi Carl, I can see you here. How could it be improved? I just wonder if by turning the camera left and up a little, you could have kind of put that darker piece more in the corner and said more about the clouds and the sky. I'm not it's kind of jutting in a little too far, but I'm being very, very picky here. I know that. But nonetheless, you've got some great colours here. Is it screaming weather at me? I guess it is a bit, because we have got some clouds. Such a difficult thing to do, and I totally salute everybody who has a go at this. Let's move on up just a touch and get through some. Maud McLean, let's have a look here. Now, of course, this is a picture after my own heart, because I used to drive these things. I'm not sure, I think it's a Massey Ferguson 550. I used to drive one. Ah, marvellous. We used to run around the farm with it. I get the cold. I like the snow. But I think it's a picture of a tractor in the snow rather than a picture of the weather. And I know I'm being tough here, because this was a very, very tough challenge. Technically, yep, your exposure's bang on. Again, you've got just a little bit of movement. You can see the tractor wheel is turning. That means you've got the shutter speed just slow enough to capture that movement. That makes it a nice picture. I get it. Where are we? Are we in Ireland somewhere? I'm not sure. No, can't see. But either way, thank you, Denise. Either way, I think it's a nice picture, and I do get the feeling of being in that cold little tractor on a cold day. I miss my tractors. Wendy Lamb. Now here I would say we've certainly got some weather going on. Glyn, you like tractors too? Good man. Wonderful things. Lovely piece of weather, Wendy. You know, misty mornings, they're just so great for some weather photography. What more can I say? It's about being in the right place at the right time, and that usually means putting in a bit of effort about going out at the right place at the right time. You know, it's damp, it's cold, it's foggy, and you think, I don't really want to go out in this, but that's what makes the picture work. How could it be improved upon? It's a tricky one, that, because it is really nice. My thought could be maybe, if you could zoom in just a touch so that the tops of the trees were literally right in those corners either side. Let's see. Shall we do the test? Let's take a little bit off the top and see how it looks. Grab your hand, your phone, something. All around the world, people are hopefully doing this. Let's just slide the top of those off and just have... So we're just cropping the very tops of the trees so the branches are in the corner. I think it works a little better. What do you think, guys? Just taking a little bit off the top. The other thing which might have helped kind of on a similar vein is maybe extend the focal length a bit, zoom in just a little bit, because that would have taken out the sky and just brought the bridge and the trees closer. Possibly a few reeds in the foreground, but there may not be any. I don't know. I wasn't there and you were. Nonetheless, technically everything is all bang on. It's exactly the sort of exposure you would expect on a misty, moisty morning. Well done on you. Good on you, Wendy. Let's sneak up a little bit further so we can make sure we get through as many as possible. We've got another misty morning here from Emma Truesdale, and I do like the sun coming through that fog. Foggy, cold, misty sort of a day. Emma, I feel maybe a little more exposure. Now I know we're always afraid to burn out the highlights, but on a misty, foggy sort of a day, when you look at where the sun is, it does burn out. And I just wonder if it was a touch brighter, and I'm being picky here, I'm being hard on you, I've got my coach's hat on. I just wonder if it might have a little bit more life. It might have said more about that cold, sparkly, frosty mistiness going on. I'm also kind of intrigued by those trees to the left, because the fence is very, very strong and it kind of works, but I also wonder how would it have worked had you walked along the fence further and possibly shot through the branches of the trees, so you had the sun behind the trees, you might not have been able to do that. I don't know, Emma, I wasn't there. But sometimes things like that can work very, very well. Something else which might have worked well, the sun is right smack above this tree. Now, as it came up, I'm thinking it was probably at some point right behind the tree. Now, I get it, you weren't there at that point in time, but possibly with the sun right behind that one single lone tree and a longer lens zooming in on it, that I think could have been very powerful indeed, just keeping a little bit of the mistiness, some space around it. I'm being hard on you, but hey, I would be a rubbish coach if I sat on the running machine eating donuts with you, wouldn't I? But good work, nicely done, Emma. Let's move up a bit. Annette Vaughn, a very different kind of a vibe going on here. And I love the way you've captured that feeling of a bright sunny day without showing the bright sunny day. This is where it starts to get really interesting. This is where the creative thinking comes in. I love those shadows coming towards the building. Yeah, okay, there's lots of stuff going on here, but it has got that feeling of a bright sunny day, and it feels cold. To me, I don't know. If you're here, Annette, I'd love to know, was it cold or was it a hot day? Was it a warm day? To me, it just looks and feels like a cold day, but nonetheless, I'm feeling bright sunny day. You know the sun is absolutely shining without seeing the sunshine, and that is a clever thing to do, I think. I'm going to keep an eye out, Annette, just in case you're here. It was frosty. Okay, you got a cold feeling into it as well, and that is really, really cool because you can't actually see the frost. It's, I don't know, I feel cold. Guys, do you feel cold when you look at this? Just put a Y if you kind of get that cold vibe as well, or an N if you don't. I'm just intrigued because everybody, we all have our own interpretations when it comes to imagery, looking at anything. It's all subjective. It's all based around the stories we tell ourselves in our heads. Yeah, some people are saying, yeah, I get a cold vibe, and others are saying no, they possibly get a warm vibe. And this is, you know, of course, the way it is. I've got a dog scratching at the window. I'm sorry, mate, you can't come in at the moment. Because there's 4 of them and they'll all start bounding around and making lots of noise. So let's move up a little further. Now, I would say we've got a bit of weather going on here from Sasha Stolevich. Cold, windy day. I would say you've definitely caught a feeling of cold, windy day going on here. There's no question about that. I think you've got maybe just a little too much going on in the picture though, Sasha. I love the way you have got the water. You've chosen this moment as the water is falling over the concrete of that breakwater, whatever it is. And I like the waves going on in the background. I'm not so sure about the opposite shore, and also there's this big square thing kind of in the middle. It's a little bit domineering. We've got some lovely ingredients here. We've got the water cascading over the rocks, we've got the waves, maybe the shore without the big square bollard thing going on might have worked. Could you, and I'm being harsh on you because I do like the feeling, have moved to your left a bit and possibly shot past it, or a longer lens? I wonder what happens if we take that big heavy bollard out. Let's do the test. I'm going to just close one eye and slide the phone in and see what happens. I'm just doing it as a vertical and using just this little piece here. I think it's not quite the right angle for that. To me, it's not working. It's actually better the way you did it, I think. So that idea of mine didn't particularly work. I just think something needs cropping a bit. Who said that? Crop the top of the picture. Somebody said that. Sarah, let's just crop the top. Let's take your suggestion on board and do it. Let's just take that down. Yes. Because I quite like the opposite shore, but you know what, Sarah? I think you're right. I think just taking the top off and concentrating on the water maybe works a little better. We are all different in the way we see, in our seeing. But good on you, Sasha. Good on you for getting out there and doing it and entering a challenge. And remember, guys, these are challenges. They're not competitions. It's not something to be won. And I know some of you get quite frustrated if we don't open the album straight away. But look, you've got a whole month to do this. This isn't about going, oh, I took a picture that will cover that yesterday. Give yourself permission to have a bit of time. Shoot for the challenge. Spend that month looking at your surroundings and trying to interpret the theme, because that's where the exercise comes in. You don't grow your skills or get exercise or practice if you think, oh, I took one of those this morning, that'll work, and then you forget it. This isn't about that. It's not a competition. Anyway, enough telling you off, because you are lovely people. Susie Mann. You know, these frost things are so beautiful and so pretty. And of course this says weather. We know what's happening here. I've never actually had this kind of pattern on my windscreen. Maybe it's an England thing. I don't know. I'm not sure where you are, Susie. But I do think there are some beautiful shapes and patterns. I'm not so sure on the composition on the left. I'm going to just take this piece on the left, the darker area. You see where my cursor is? I'm just going to take it off about from where the cursor is, because I find that little dark bit on the left a little distracting. I might even come in closer. You see this feather shape coming in here. I think cropping it down through there where the cursor is now possibly works even better, because I love those shapes. Nicely done, perfectly sharp, well exposed, technically spot on. What more can I say? Good on you for giving it a lash and for joining in, Susie. That's what it's all about. It is a lovely picture. This is a beautifully taken image. Nicola. Hello, Nicola. It's a beautifully taken image. The Norman Belfast miserable rain. Not today, kids. I'm getting that cold, wet sort of a feeling. I like the droplet. It is technically what could be more spot on. Totally get it. I like the way you've composed it as well. It's a little bit kind of off the wall, putting things in the middle, doing things people say you shouldn't do. I like the bright bit just above this. I don't know what this is, this fabric thing sticking out. But you've got some beautiful light coming through the droplet. The droplet is woken up because light is coming through it. Light is always king. Exactly, Denise. The droplet does it. It's a lovely picture, Nicola. You can hear the buck, can't you? I'm not quite getting weather. Am I getting weather? Let's put this out from me. Just put me if you're getting weather. Because, you know, there are two things going on here. A beautifully created picture, technically perfect, artistically beautifully done. Are you getting weather when you look at it? Just say me if you are. Pop it into the comment. It's a parasol. Hi, Nicola. Good to see you. Makes me think of rain, says Beryl. Yep, yep. Okay. Dampen rain, dampen rain, dampen rain. Okay. Kind of. We got a yeah, it could be a kind of. Most people are saying me. That's cool. That's completely cool. Yeah, I'm getting it. It is wet and it is rainy. I think maybe what was puzzling me, and that's just me, is I wasn't sure what it was. I think if I knew what it was a bit more, if I knew it was like a kid's wet glove or something like that, it might have helped me. But it's a beautifully taken picture. There's no taking it away from that. It certainly drew attention when judging these things and finding pictures. They all go into a folder. I end up with about 10 and I've got to start removing them. Sometimes there's more than 10, sometimes there's 20. That was in that folder, as were many others within this collection. What else? Let's have a look at this one here of Terry's. Again, another misty day. Now I like the light coming through those trees, Terry. They look absolutely great. I'm getting that cold, cold morning feeling. I'm just wondering, could you have made a little bit more of the sun and these rays coming through the trees? Because I think this is the exciting area down here. I love the trees in the distance, but I think it should be maybe more one or the other. I like the misty trees in the distance. Let's take out those sun rays and the trees on the right. So when we've just got the ones in the background, that kind of works. But I think if we take those out and just keep the ones on the right, make it more of an upright shot, I think it almost works better because it's those rays of light coming through the trees. Again, I'm wondering, could you have just walked along through the field a bit and shot straight in towards the sun? How would that have looked? Sometimes these things work well, sometimes they don't. I don't know. I wasn't there. But nonetheless, I agree with you, Sue Owen. It is a lovely picture and well spotted for noticing those rays. But don't be afraid to try lots of different ways to try and sort those rays out and make them stand out. I couldn't agree more, Glyn. It needs a tractor. Maybe a tractor in the rays. That would work, wouldn't it? Boys and their tractors, eh? Let's move up through a little bit further and just take a moment to look at some of these images as we go, because there are some really beautiful pictures going on here. Alan Baxter, again, I think you've got a great weather thing going on here. And the light is beautiful. There is no question about that. It's such a gorgeous picture. The way people are hunched, you know, it's the body language. We are cold, but we're going to come out and enjoy it and love those stormy clouds and the rays of light, that rim light going on around the clouds. You've composed this beautifully, Alan. Just having those top few clouds, you know, framing the tops. We've got the rim light right on the very, very top. Sorry, I needed to check something there. I need to put that back there and that back there. Also, there's that little pool of light highlighting the frost. Yeah, absolutely gorgeous. Perfect light. For my own taste, and this is just my own taste, I'm thinking, could you have taken that exposure up just a tiny bit, just a little bit more light? You don't want much, and I'm being harsh. I'm only talking a tiny bit, maybe half a stop, because I feel it wasn't actually quite that dark there, and I think you still would have managed to capture the rays of light, but just a little bit more light down in here. This, of course, could be a Facebook messing around with an upload problem. I don't know. But it's a beautifully done picture. Good on you, Alan. Let's move up a little further and have a different look. Ah, Mr. Cleesby. Hello, Gary. A totally different type of weather, isn't it? It's a different take. I like your positioning, your composition here, Gary. And I kind of get the feeling of what's going on here. Is that you in the picture? Is that a selfie, Gary? Or is that someone else? A bit of sort of, well, you can't call it street photography. We could call it field photography. I'd love to know. It is you in the picture. Cool. How could it be intended? Improved. I don't know. I'm feeling it's a bit dark. I'm feeling it's a bit too silhouette-y. And also, I'm loving the light on your dog. That rim light is beautiful. But I think we need a little bit more life in you, in the faces. I think that would be really cool. But it's a good effort. That is a difficult exposure to try and get right without doing an HDR merge or something like that. Let's ease on up a little further. Stephen Laws. This is a lovely picture. Who could not like that? I like the waves, and it kind of feels a bit wintry, a bit cold. I love that little human figure in there as well. I like the edginess of it, the fact the human figure is so close to the edge. I'm just wondering if it might work better had the camera been just a bit to the right or slightly wider. just to have them a little further in, and I'm only talking a little because it does work having them on the edge. I also kind of like the fact that the horizon's in the middle. This is just me, I know, because people say, well, which are we looking at? But I think it's fairly obvious because we've got the sea, the breakwaters, the steps, the human figure. I think we know the action's in the lower half. It may have worked better up a bit or down a bit. I don't think either direction would have made much difference. Again, the body language, I think, and the clothing is helping because, you know, it's cold. We can tell it is indeed a winter walk. Yeah, nicely done, Stephen. Oh, there's a couple here that I particularly was intrigued by. Now, I know I'm a little bit odd. I so get weather out of this, Rob. Rob is a man who has been on the Lanzarote workshop. I don't know if you're here. I so get weather out of this. And again, I think it's clever because you're saying weather without showing us any weather. And that is the key, I think. I think it's great. You know, that washing, I don't know what they call washing line thing, the shirts blowing around, and okay, you've been there, you've probably taken a few frames, you caught that moment when there is a starburst coming through. It's a very ordinary urban scene. It's not like you'd look at it and go, wow, what a beautiful picture. But what you have got is a picture that, to me, shouts weather. It's a windy day. And I think it's a really great thing. It's very, very simple. I'm sure there are people watching this who are going to say, no, don't get it. It's just a bunch of laundry on a washing line. But we know the wind's blowing. We know the air is moving. And that is what it was all about, capturing a feeling of weather. A friend of mine, actually, who has to remain top secret, has an Instagram channel all about laundry. And I'm not allowed to disclose who it is because it's become a bit of a thing. And it's really quite an interesting thing. Laundry. The channel's called La Colada, which is Spanish for laundry. But I'd never thought about it until this person happened to say to me that it's actually quite an intimate thing. You know, hanging out your laundry. All those things that you own, underwear and clothes and all sorts of things like that. And the things you can tell about a person just by looking at their laundry. And I'd never thought about that. I think it's a very creative, interesting idea. Anyway, I really like that shot, Rob. Some of you may disagree, but hey, at the end of the day, it's just my opinion. But I think that shouts weather. As does this one, Andy Gosling. A misty morning in Ledbury. I think this is a really, really nice little misty morning thing. You know, the people going for a walk, the mist, the old houses, the composition is holding it all together, having that alleyway going down through there. For me, I would have liked to have seen people coming towards the camera rather than away. Robert Cook's here about his laundry. Camera on the tripod, one shot every 10 seconds for 99 shots. That is really, really cool. Thanks, Robert. And by the way, if you're not sure how Rob made that starburst, it's a very small aperture, little tiny aperture. The light does weird things around, you know, the leaves of the iris in the lens, and it gives that starburst effect. So I'm guessing Rob was looking for that effect when I'm going to come back to this one, forgive me for jumping around. Rob was looking for that starburst effect. He'd already pre-visualized it. I use a small aperture. If we can get it in just the right place, we'll get the sun doing a starburst. So then setting the camera up on the tripod and taking multiple shots using the small exposure, you're going to capture it. This is my 7 building blocks of photography, isn't it? It's about how to think like a photographer. Once you understand the camera, the 5 controls you need, how to use them and be efficient and not have to worry about them, and light and composition, then you can move on to thinking like a photographer, which is this. It's like, what do I want to achieve here? Okay, what will I need to do that? Okay, so how will I need to do that? Okay, right, so what weather will I need to do that in? And that's the thinking like a photographer. And to me, that is what advanced photography is. It's got nothing to do with buying expensive lights and gadgets and how do you use a radio controlled thing. That is not advanced photography. That is using equipment. There's nothing wrong with that, and some equipment is quite complex. But to me, photography is using this thing. That is advanced photography. Right, let me move on. Come back here. Sorry, Andy. So the only thing I would say, yeah, technically absolutely perfect. Love the fact you use black and white. It just works. I like the people in the frame. I don't know why. I would have liked to have seen someone coming towards the camera. I don't know if you're here, Andy. But nonetheless, it's a great shot. It's beautifully done. And it absolutely says weather. I can feel that cold, misty air on the back of my tongue as I'm breathing around my nostrils. Let's ease up a bit further because I would like to try and get all the way through, and let's get through there. This, I think, is quite good fun. Hello, Sharon Miller. I mean, this is such, you know, a social media Instagram type of a picture, but it works. It's been very well done. You know, the sausage legs things that you see people posting. Hi, Sharon. But I think you've done this really nicely. I really like the composition. I don't know if you're using a polarizer here because you've got that really dark piece of blue going on in the middle of the sky. But I just like all of it, really. I like the sort of the little bit of, I guess it's water, you know, the shallow bit of water running back across the sand. You can see the waves in the distance. The sunshine on your feet, it is giving a lovely, warm, sunny feeling. We don't have to read your comment to know that you're somewhere warm and sunny. Okay, taken with your iPhone, great. I have no problem with phone cameras whatsoever. Susan first just said I do this every time I go to a beach on holiday. Beach feet shot. It might be a beach feet shot, but it does say weather. We know that it's hot. Just out of interest, Sharon, which beach are you on? Do like a bit of Australian beach. Okay, let's just ease our way out. And Ian, Rob, that's another. I mean, you know, we've got a lot of weather going on here. We know how cold that day is. A cold day in the west of Scotland. Yep. I think this one, Rob, because you've got all your exposures right, you know, there's technically everything is great. I think it's the time of day and the light. We've got a few shadows coming in. It is, I guess, late afternoon because we can see those shadows starting to sneak across. I wonder if maybe half an hour or more later might have just helped it a bit more. Would those shadows have been longer? The other thing is I'm not quite sure where to look at the first bite. It's a lovely scene. There's some wonderful ingredients and it's well spotted and technically created. I'm just going to take a little piece of that field off. Let's go just below that little single lone tree because I like that. This little tree here. Let's get something, hold it at arm's length and let's just ease it off. You see, I think it works better without quite so much of the field in the foreground. Maybe half of the field. Just take it off so that the fence is just at the bottom on the right. I'm being picky. What do you think, guys? Sharon Miller, you're spoiling everything. It was a filter in Snapseed and there's me praising you up for your marvellous photography. Anyway, it doesn't matter. It worked. It worked. I still got the feeling of weather. Okay, so cropping it off, taking off the fence just into the corner. I think that's all it needs and it makes a big difference, Ian. It's a tiny thing and I'm being harsh on you because I've got my photo coach hat on. Possibly you could have taken the exposure down a bit as well, but only a tiny bit because you don't want to lose that lovely crispy white ice. Let's move up a bit further. Good, we're not doing badly. I like this one, Moira. And you know what? I was hoping to see a whole pile of kids jumping in puddles, lots of splashing going on, you know, all that stuff. I'm a 60-year-old child. I still jump in puddles and splash. I like what you're doing here, Moira. You're absolutely going in the right direction. I'm just wondering, could we have had more splash? I like the way that you have concentrated on the feet. I think you could have given it a bit more space. We don't necessarily have to see the whole child to know that there's a child there. Totally get that. But I don't know, you know, that real big feet together, jump, splash. I think that can really, really say weather. You are saying weather. I forgot to mention that. There's nothing wrong with what you're doing. This is just purely how I think it maybe could have been enhanced just a bit. We've got a few droplets in the air. I just imagine what it would look like if there was loads of them. But yeah, it's a good shot, technically spot on, nice colours, it's in focus, it's sharp, you've got a bit of backlight coming through the droplets which is making them stand out. When you put light through a translucent thing, that is what wakes it up. Kenneth says, I'm a 38-year-old child who still jumps in puddles. Yeah. You're just a young whippersnapper at 38, but hey, good on you. Jump in those puddles. That is what puddles were made for. So let's move on a little further up through the list. Hello, Dawn McLean. We're seeing the same old faces again. How are we going to get these other people that are in the group to come and join in, to actually do something instead of watch from the sidelines? You guys totally rock. You are doing something. We need to get the others to come and do something too. There's no point being part of a photo challenge group if you don't do the challenges. So pass the word around. Anyway, I think you've done a great job, Dawn. I totally get cold, you know? There's no two ways about it. It's their expressions that are doing it. I just think it's great fun. Okay, so you're swimming. You do this too, do you, Dawn? Cold water swimming in Donegal, 7 degrees. Yeah, the expression on their faces is just fantastic. Totally get that cold feeling. Technically, absolutely spot on. Exposure is perfect. We've got the faces spot on. We're not losing any detail in that very, very bright sky. Love the angle you're shooting from, Dawn. You're just skimming the water. I don't know if you did this with a waterproof camera, a GoPro or something like that. Doesn't matter. But we can tell that you're in the water too because of these little ripples that are right smack in front of the lens. Glyn says it's swimming, not weather. Now, Glyn, stop it. Yeah, I love it. Also, of course, you got your horizon nice and level because it's really difficult when you have a horizon that's wonky like this. Yeah, that's a good point, Karen. They're wearing woolly hats while swimming. I just love it. Only ever in Ireland, I guess. Anyway, nonetheless, great shot. Nicely done, Dawn. Let's move on up. This one, actually, Linda ONeill. Hello, Linda. I think this is a really great weather photograph. Technically, again, you're all nicely spot on, great exposure. Nighttime in the rain, that shiny, wet look. I totally get it. I'm wondering, Linda, could you have given it a little bit more space? So, okay, it's a pub. We can see the shady oak. Good on you for including that there. I don't know what's going on above it. It might be something horrible. But I love that light. The backlight is coming off the wet stones and we are getting that feeling of weather. We know it's raining. The umbrella is secondary to the fact that it's raining. It's the light on the stones, that shiny wet look that says it's raining. The umbrella just kind of seems to support that. Great work, nicely done. How could it be improved? I don't know, you know me, I like space. Maybe a little more space. It's difficult because, you know, our man silhouette is just slightly being lost against the background, but it's only a bit, and you know, hey, what could you do about it without starting to put artificial light in there? Yeah, nicely done, Linda. Let's ease up a little bit further and have a look. Ah, wow, this is a beautiful picture, Margie Wright Jones. And it is totally weather. What can I say? You know, it is totally weather. We don't need the snowflakes to tell us that. Just the body language of this little bird. What is it? I don't know. I'm not going to read all those comments. It'll take too long. But look at the body language. Those feathers puffed up. It's hunkered down. It's cold. Why does this picture work so well? Let's just go through it. Red cardinal, you think, Nicola? Thank you. Well, for a start, we've got a longish lens and a shallow depth of field. So that means a wide aperture, which means the bird has been focused on. Margie's been careful not to include too much other stuff going on. Yeah, there's a bit of a twig poking in the background, but it's out of focus. It isn't doing any harm. If it wasn't there, it would be even better. But it is. And I quite like a twig poking into the corner of a picture, personally. The colours work because it is really, really simple. Red draws the eye. It always does. So we've got red on a sort of grey-white. Look at those layers in the background. I don't know what the background is, but because it's a shallow depth of field, we're getting those sort of lines coming through it. And yeah, it just works. It just works. I am totally getting cold coming out of this picture. It's a beautiful picture. Not much more you can say. Nicely done, Margie. Now obviously we've got some cold here. Hello, Diane Harper. This is very obviously cold. What could be more cold than ice? But I don't think I'm getting weather. And this is a very subtle distinction. Yeah, I'm getting ice, but is ice the same thing as weather? We're hinting at what the weather is doing, but are we actually getting the feeling of what the weather is? Yeah, probably, because we've got the sun there. So we've got bright and cold. I don't know, it's a hard thing to do, but you have achieved something interesting. And also the thing is, Diane has put a lot of work into it. Just like the, sorry, my brain's gone dead. The, you know, the swimming, the cold water swimming. You know, Diane's got right down in close onto the ground, onto the ice, has found a little piece of ice. The light is coming towards the camera, causing that light path. And that little piece of ice in the middle is sparkling because of it. Diane has put quite a bit of work into it. It's not just like, there's some ice, take a picture. How could it be improved upon? I think if you took the exposure down a little bit, Diane, that's all, just a little bit. Make the ice a little darker, because I still think you'd have the sparkles going in your piece of ice here. I'm not too worried. Now there is a bit of a, okay, we get burnout. I've got a problem with that. I don't know if you're here, Diane, did you shoot this as a raw file? This is where shooting raw and developing your own raw starts to come in really useful, because you can use the controls you have within a raw processing software to take super bright highlights that we don't see them like that with our eyes, and make them look more natural. Post-production is about fixing things that are broken. It's about making things either look natural or the way you want them to look. Because the first question when taking a photograph should be, how do I want this to look? Diane asked that question and thought, I want this little piece of ice to be strong in the foreground. Nicely done. I can't believe I've been gobbing on for this long. Look at the time. Let's move a little further. Look at some of these beautiful pictures coming up through here. We've got a slightly bigger splash coming on here from Lindsay Marcel. Yeah, I like the splash. Lindsay, I think, again, maybe, it's so hard, isn't it? Because little kids, the way they splash. I think a lower angle, if you could do it, if you could get that camera down lower, you know, so that you're sort of looking through the muddy splash a little more, possibly sort of to one side. Hard, because you bet your life this little person is probably jumping up and down and turning as they're doing it. It's not easy. And then just as you think you're in the right place, they'll get bored with jumping in the puddle. But hey, good entry. Good point, Helen Martin. Thank you for mentioning that. Guys, if you haven't already hit the like button, please do that, because it will make a big difference for me and it will help YouTube understand that you like this video. All I'm saying is, if you do like it, don't forget, please hit the like button. Thank you for the reminder, Helen. Let's move on. Now this, Andre, I mean, a perfectly taken photograph. What can we say? You know, the light's great. It's coming in from slightly behind. Look at that highlight down the side of the bottle. The light's coming through the glass and the beer, and it's kind of waking it up just a little bit so that the translucency is showing up. Thank you, Sasha. I kind of get it. I'm getting more like après-ski, which I think this is what this is. Yes, we can see some weather in the photograph, but is it a photograph that gives the feeling of weather? I think it gives the feeling of, I've got a nice glass of beer, but that could just be me. Gary says it's a beer advert. Yeah, it's a perfectly done photograph. We've got a wide aperture, shallow depth of field, the background is blurry, we know what the picture's about, it's about the beer. I'm not quite getting that weather vibe come out of it. Denise says she likes the mix of summer in a winter scene. Yeah, get it. Après-ski. Perfectly taken, technically spot on. Absolutely, Andre. If you're going to do it, I would suggest give it a bit more room. It's kind of, let's have a bit more of that sky and a little bit more of that scenery and the other ski chalets going on around there and the skiers in the background. Because I think that could help the picture. At the moment, it's sort of going, beer! Beer! Give me beer! And I think it could be settled down just a bit. Technically, spot on though, my friend. Good on you for giving it a go and getting stuck in there and entering a picture, because that is what it's all about. You can't be a photographer if you don't think like a photographer, or indeed go and do photography. Start giving yourselves challenges, which you guys are, and that's what makes you rock. Fabulous piece of weather here. Hello, Sandra Sim. Fabulous piece of weather here. Certainly you've got a great picture of weather. What more can I say? Look at those clouds. They're just awesome. I don't know what more to say, really. It's a great example of weather. I like those rays. I like the bit of the headland going on there. I'm not sure we need quite so much on the left, but I mean, let's just take a little piece off and try it, shall we, people? Let's just sort of go in maybe a third from the left. You see that highlight here? Let's just put that into the corner and see how it looks. I need to just do that way up. We don't want to lose the highlight, by the way. The highlight belongs there. I'm just taking off the dark bit to the left of it. I think it helps just a little bit. I'm being picky on you, Sandra, because it's a great picture. I'm just being your coach and being picky. Beautiful piece of light. Well spotted, nicely done, technically bang on. Yeah, please, guys, put your opinions as to what you think. As is gorgeous or not. I like the whole picture, gives it scale. Whether you think it looks better just cropped a little bit from the left. This is the thing. Photography is subjective. People often say, how do I create a style of my own? You don't create a style of your own. You photograph photographs. You make photographs the way you like photography. And that is your style. You know, and not everyone will like it, and everyone will have different opinions. You're very welcome, Sandra. Yeah, great. So someone's saying either as is, yeah, it's a good picture. What more can we say? Good Lord, it's 10:02. I am determined to get a little further up. I think this is great fun, Jos. No questions about it. We know what's going on. It's windy. And I like you're using backlight. Good on you. Because the backlight is what's making this lady's hair sort of stand out against the background. You've got this little moment where it's blowing up. As a photograph overall, I feel it doesn't quite work. It's like she's looking very slightly anxious. She's got nice light on her face. Also composition-wise, with the eyes right smack in the middle like this, it doesn't feel quite so good. I think maybe if you'd given her a little more space or something, positioned her a bit differently in the frame, the backlight in her hair would have made her stand out really quite nicely as it is. But good on you. You entered, you looked, you saw, you shot, you arrived, you are here. What more can anyone say? Okay, let's move up a little further. This is such fun. Paul Lynn. It's a great picture. I mean, yeah, it's a great picture. And I'm still getting that feeling of weather. We know that it's hot and sunny. You have said weather, and you've done it in quite a humorous sort of a way. I'm guessing this is probably quite a popular place to sort of stand and shoot things and wait for these little moments. But nonetheless, you've done it. You've done it really well. Sandy Frew, yeah, I think you're saying weather here very, very well indeed because of the flags. Yeah, we've got that moody sky going on, and it's the flags that are telling us what the air is doing, that it is windy, that stuff is moving around. You've got some great light on those flags too. And also you've got just the right moment, because you know the annoying thing with flags, you've got sort of 3 or 4 in a row, one of them decides it's going to fold itself in half or droop or something. You've kind of got them all quite uniform, and the light, on the ripples is working very well. Not so bright, but definitely breezy. Good way of describing it. Let's just move up a bit because I'm having to use my, oh look, come back, I want to, no, I can't seem to get the little slidey thing. There it is. Let's just ease our way up and look at a few of these. Dorothy. I'm getting it. I can see what you're thinking. What could say some are more than 2 little girls playing under the tap? But I'm not getting, I am getting 2 little girls playing with water under a tap, but I'm not quite getting the weather. I do think it's cute. I like the way the hat's covering the eyes. I think you're a bit tight on them, Dorothy. Don't be afraid to give them a little bit of room to breathe. And I think maybe if we saw more of what was going on around the little girls, then I think it might say more of summer. Perhaps giving them more space, we might see what's happening in the background with the light and the shade. We can see it in the wire mesh fence there. And I think maybe giving them a bit more space might have said a little bit more about the fact that it's summer and the weather. It's still a lovely picture. Right, let's just keep working our way up a little further. Michael. I mean, Michael, you are the king of the sunset, aren't you? You know, you do take some awesome pictures. And it's a beautiful sunset. What more can I say? And you know, it's all nicely done, beautifully done. We've got a cityscape instead of a landscape. I wonder where it is. Oh, here we go, Portland, Oregon, Mount Hood. Beautiful, beautiful light, beautiful light. All I can say, my friend, is I'm getting the feeling of beautiful sunset over the city, a little more than weather. Now I know there's that red sky at night thing going on there as well, possibly. It's a beautiful picture. It's a beautiful picture. But I think the thing here is, you know, Rob's like rotary washing line blowing in the wind. That isn't such a beautiful picture. Forgive me, Rob, I'm not being derogatory here. But to me, it kind of shouted weather a little more than this very beautiful picture of a sunset over the city. Just me, beautifully done. I can't knock any of your photography, Michael. You're very good at it. You are one of our regulars, and everybody here who knows you, I'm sure, will agree. Let's ease our way up. We've got a lovely, nice bit of mistiness from Sam here. I like the way you put this one together, Sam. I like the way you have got those reeds running across the very bottom of the frame, and the fact they kind of mirror the shape of the trees. You've almost got this triangular thing going on there. I think it's nicely done, and I can certainly feel the mistiness of the weather. I'm wondering if you could have increased your exposure just a touch to make it just a little brighter. It might have made the fog pop a bit more, you know, it's a bit brighter. But yeah, well done, nicely done. And you're another good guy, Sam. You're always here, you're always doing it. We can't go past Michelle's sense of humour, can we? Fantastic, Michelle. Very nicely done. I think that's an excellent storm in a t-shirt, storm in a t-shirt, storm in a teacup. Yeah, beautifully done. What more can I say? I think it's great fun. Let's ease our way back up. Again, Jane. We've got a nice bit of weather going on here. This is where these subtle differences lie. We've got a bit of a sunset. We're picking up the pinky glow of the sun setting somewhere else. And we can feel the weather is closing in a bit, I think. And I like the foreground, but I can't help but think, would it be better with a little less of that foreground? Forgive me, I'm just going to take a bit of it away. I like the green though. I'm not quite sure what it is. Maybe if you were a little closer to the lake, that might have helped. Or possibly come back a little more and just sort of a bit lower, just to include a little more of that green in the tufts. Tough call. I'm not quite sure what this wants, but it's still a beautifully done picture. And for me, it certainly says weather. Nicely done, Jane. Okay, we are at 8 o'clock. It is going to be time to have a look at the ones which I kept coming back to and got me. Stuart Anthony, I do just have to pull this one out because I think this is another great example of weather. These little birds' footprints in the snow. I just think it's quite good fun. Exposure-wise, I think, it could have been possibly a bit brighter. Don't forget, when you point a camera at something like snow, the camera is very often going to make it darker than it is. I think we've all had pictures taken in the snow, which we hope is going to be bright and sparkly, and it isn't. It comes out grey. That's because your camera can't think, and the camera has been told the world is grey halfway between black and white. You've done a pretty good job because it isn't totally grey, and I love your creative thinking. It's a cracking picture, Stuart. Another beautiful picture from David Mill. Again, foggy. There's lots of foggy pictures here. I was kind of hoping for lots of sunny ones that would go hot, heat, you know. That would have been really great fun to see some of you guys that are in hot parts of the world managing to capture a feeling of being overcooked and boiling hot. The first time I was in Sharjah in the United Arab Emirates for the Exposure Festival, it was mind-bendingly hot and humid. It would have been great to see something like that. It was so hot. I remember 11 o'clock at night, there were pools of water on the pavement outside the hotel where this horrible, wet, clammy, humid air was hitting the cold glass, and it was just water rushing down the side of the building. Another way of sort of saying something about weather. Jan, more beautiful bits of ice going on here. Because it is time to move on, I am going to move on. I'm sorry if you didn't have a shout out on your picture. I hope some of the critique and some of the things that I have said have been of value to you. Now bear with me, I've got to be careful as I do this, as I change the shot. You're watching behind the scenes now. This is what's usually going on a different monitor. So I need to change the shot. Now you know how I do that. So that I can get our chosen pictures of the month. These are the ones which just stood out to me and I kept coming back to over and over again. So, great comment, William Davidson. That was, you were right, it's an excellent session, and thank you to all of you photographers who have submitted pictures who've been out there and done the challenge. You know, you all deserve a big high five round of applause, each and every one of you. So let me get myself sorted out and we can start looking at the ones which I chose as my picks of the month. Now forgive me, because I'm a poor blind old man and sometimes I can't read, because on this software I'm looking at, it's really, really small. But I loved this one by Tudor Smith. I think that really, really shouted weather, you know. The wind's blowing, there's a bit of a storm at sea, we got the wet ground, we got, you know, father and child playing down by the water. I don't know if you remember these things or whether it's just me, but it evokes childhood memories for me of being down there with my dad, you know, watching the storm and the waves and all the rest of it. And being a 60-year-old child, I still like going down by the waves as well. I think you've captured weather and somehow a little bit of a childhood feeling in there as well. I think it's a really great picture, Tudor. Compositionally, I like the way you've used the railing coming along. You've got that moment of the wave. You've got all those droplets are frozen, so that means a fast shutter speed. And a little bit of coaching, just a little bit, because that's what I'm supposed to be doing. I like the reflection in the puddle too. I just wonder, could you just, it's so hard to get this right, I know, but a little fraction lower and back, could you have caught that reflection too? You know, shoot it a little wider and then maybe crop a bit off afterwards if you have to. Boy, I'm being picky though. Great shot, beautifully done, sir. I think this one says quite a lot about weather, and it's a very beautiful picture. And anyone who is wondering about style, if you've been around this photo creative group for the last 2-3 years, or however long it is, you know, you can always spot certain photographers' styles. Dan has a very noticeable style, whether he's photographing, you know, a snail on the edge of a wall, I don't know if you remember that from a few years ago, or this snowy scene in the park. It just works beautifully. We're absolutely seeing the weather, the snow is falling, those beautiful little pools of light and dark, these little pools of light going on in the park, and that one light boldly positioned in the middle of the frame. Look at the composition. Dan's very good at composition. If you're wondering about composition and why some pictures work, study those pictures. Ask yourself powerful questions about those pictures. So for example, look at these two trees on either side. Look at the gap either side of the trees, between the tree and the frame on either side. It is exactly the same. That's not by chance. These are all thinking like a photographer things. How can I make this work? What do I need to do? Yes, it's composition. Also, look at the depth of field. Everything is sharp in that picture. We're going all the way front to back. Small aperture, thinking about the aperture used, at the distance you are from the point of focus, probably using hyperfocal distance as well. All of these things, of course, are in my Masterclass in Photography online course, £55, and you've got that information for the rest of your life, all in one easy belt like that. And then once you've got that information, then you can start thinking like a photographer on those 7 building blocks. Beautiful shot, Dan. Cracking work. What more can I say, sir? We're going to move on now to Denise Savage. I get weather here. I mean, this to me just screams weather watcher. You know, somebody who is truly watching the weather. I really like the way you've composed this shot and having that lookout tower or whatever it is down in that right hand corner. I just think it's really nice. And of course, red and blue, they're best mates. They really work well together. Complementary colours or negative colours or whatever you want to call them, they do work really, really well. The 3 clouds are great. And that little hazy bit coming in from the left. You know, we're watching the weather change. I really like it, and again it feels like a warmer picture, even though that person looks a little bit wrapped up. Little coaching just from me, Denise, and I'm being picky. and that is, could you have shortened the lens a bit? Maybe you couldn't. I don't know what you had on the camera. I just love to have been able to see the edge of that cloud on the bottom left as well. But nonetheless, I think it's a beautiful shot, beautifully done. And I love this one. This is such a quiet, calm picture, and it is so obvious, if not what the weather is, but what the weather has just done. Beautiful light and such a calm, wet, watery scene. Beautifully done, Marcus. I like the composition, the way you've just got that little bit of tree in the top left corner, and it's sort of leading us to the bench on the bottom right. The way that the light is coming along the wood of the bench. So many photographs that work really, really well are taken against the light. They're shooting into the light. We've got that bright area of sky, but it's just out of frame, and it's making the tree pop and stand out. Exactly, Katie, exactly. You can feel the peace and the stillness. Our theme was weather, and I think this is kind of clever because we've got clear skies, but we know what the weather just did, so we're doing a bit of time travel in this one as well. Beautifully executed, Marcus. Great shot. What more can I say? And there were quite a few foggy pictures, but this one, I'm afraid, it kept coming back to me, and it caught my eye from our friend down under, Irene Carson. Hello, Irene. I just love the angles. It's just a different take on that foggy, misty morning thing. Looking straight up in the air is something we seldom do. So when you photograph in that direction, it starts to become noteworthy. It makes us pause because it's not an angle we often look at. But I think it's a cracking picture, Irene. I love the way you've positioned yourself. These buildings just leading us up into the mist. The fact that it is so monochromatic, and the shapes and the patterns and the lines. What more can I say? That's what I like about it. Irene's used a small aperture. She's got lots of depth of field. Nothing is soft as you go back through the picture. Cracking picture, Irene. Absolutely splendid. And so, the one that I kept coming back to over and over again was this one. From Nancy Katcher, or Kashia, I'm not sure how I pronounce this. But to me, this just really said weather in the simplest possible terms. An umbrella on ice. I just really like it. It is so simple. There's a little bit of a reflection of the umbrella on the ice. It is bright and it is cold. We know that it's icy, it's winter. We're talking winter weather for me. I just think it is a really cracking picture. Something else that I like here is the way you've just allowed the camera to tilt a bit, Nancy. Tilts are dangerous things because sometimes they can utterly destroy a picture when we try to sort of, make it dynamic and exciting by tilting the camera. I know I've certainly done it in the past. But somehow this little subtle tilt, for me, it just seems to work beautifully. Look at the camera angle. The camera is on exactly the same sort of level as that pink handle. What colours have we got? We've got black and white and a little splash of pink. And that sort of a refraction, and everything else is just cold and crystal and white. I think it's a cracking picture. What more can I say? Beautifully done, Nancy. Beautifully done, everybody who has entered our challenge. You guys totally rock. You're getting out there, you're doing it, and you're making stuff happen. So once again, if you know anybody else who's in the group who isn't joining in, over 4,500 members, please give them a poke. Ask them why they're not doing it. It's just one of those things. It just seems to me, come on, get stuck in. You want to take better pictures. You love doing photography. Here's a great opportunity to come do that. So thank you again, everybody, for being here. You guys completely rock. Thank you for putting up with the echoey room and the slightly soft picture. And as I say, I am having a bad hair day. There we go. Let's call it quits. It is now 15 minutes past the finish time. You've done a great job. The next challenge will be going live on the website very, very shortly. I will post a link in the group. I'm going to get that done now. Be well, take care. Been a pleasure to hang out with you. I'll see you.